Bonjour tout le monde. Sorry, hi everyone. I will just wait to have feedback for the sound and for the image. Okay. So let's start. So the point of this live, so it will be in English, and after this one, I will do one in French for the French community. It's to go over what we have been working on for the past 3 months at Jarvis. So from June to September. Like every time, we will start with the treasury of the protocol. Then we'll go over the ecosystem. Then I will detail all the things that we have deployed and launched, all the things that we are working on, and this is how we're gonna end up this live. So first, the treasury. So as of yesterday, when I did the, let's call it an audit, we had $256,000 without, of course, taking into account the Jarvis token that we have. I have divided them in 4 categories, so it may be easier to follow. So here we have all the gas token on the various blockchain where we are deployed. Here are some various tokens. Here, all our stable coins. So there are a few things that are interesting to note. All the stable coins there, but USDC, BUSD, and the BRL, as well as the DAI here, are pure profit from money markets. So basically, as you have known, we have lent money into AAV. So far, it has made us earn 2.5 thousand euros. And we have also deposited liquidity into market and now into Midas. When we move the liquidity from markets to Midas, we have also taken our profit. So basically all the J-Euro here, the 1.1 thousand J-Euro, the 167 Swiss franc and so on, all of these are profit from the lending on the market. We also have, we keep on trading fees. So the BUSD here are coming from the fees that we take from BNB, mainly, of course, from the activity in the Brazilian real. 1.2 thousand on Gnosis with wrapped XDAI, and almost 150,000 USDC. And of course, we still have our 20,000 Brazilian real, which are now earning yield in 2 dots. And then I did the last column, which is for me the most important because we are actually right now discussing it in the Discord. It's a token for governance. So basically, you have the VECRV, you have the CVX and locked CVX, EPX from Ellipses, the APY, DUST, and so on. So those tokens are interesting because, as you may know, they allow us to vote on the inflation, on the emission of those tokens. And it's interesting because until now, we are focusing on the Curve ecosystem. So we have a bunch of CVX, CRV, CVX, and so on and so on. But actually, we don't really use them for us. We use them just for farming, but we don't use them for Jarvis. And the reason is that all our pool on Curve, they are too small to have a gauge because from what I remember, you need at least $3 million of liquidity to deploy a gauge. And also, it's hard to basically get close to the Curve team. You know, it's a big project. And lately, I started to speak a bit more with the Balancer team. And an idea popped up is that we could move from the Curve ecosystem to the Balancer ecosystem. And so now we're discussing in the Discord whether we should convert part of our Curve ecosystem token into Balancer that we are actually farming with the staked Matic that we have. And we can use BAL to log them into VE-BAL and then to vote on emission for our pool. So basically to create stable pool on instead of Curve using Balancer, and of course moving our liquidity for the Jarvis token and so on and so on. So this is why I did those 4 columns, so we can clearly see what are the tokens that we have not for speculative purpose, but mainly for controlling the governance of our project. The stablecoin that we have to use to make more money, some investment that we can dump when we want, and of course some gas token that also we can use to work with. Okay, so that's all. Let's move to the next slide. Okay, wait, I don't know how. Okay, I guess I have to do this. Yes. Okay, ecosystem. I'll wait because I have to remove the annotation. Clear all drawings. Okay. Zoom have updated, and honestly, it's not very user friendly. Okay, now something very interesting, the ecosystem. This summer, we worked a lot on increasing the amount of data that we track on chain. And we do this for two things. Of course, it's important to know what is going on within Jarvis, but also it's to know what brings most value to the protocol, and that we know what we have to focus on. So first, the TVL is still quite stable, around $7 million across the 4 different chains where we are. Now, some numbers. So for now, on Polygon, I always do only the data on Polygon because it's mainly where we are, and also because the other blockchain are not tracked on June. But so far, we have $236 million on the primary market, which means directly on the Jarvis exchange. So there is a few things to mention here. So first thing, on the left, you can see the volume. And as you can see, since June, the volume are way smaller than what they were before. But the number of transactions is way bigger than what it was before. So there are 2 reasons that explain this. First, for the volume, it's somehow intended. The idea is that because we'll transition soon from GRT token to Jarvis token, and also because of the market condition, I mean, the crypto market, as you know, has plunged, the idea was to reduce drastically the emission of GRT. So basically to reduce our yield farming program. So before, for example, we were targeting a liquidity of $1 to $3 million on the Euro pool. And now we target a liquidity of $500,000, so it's 6 times less. So how do we target liquidity? It's easy. So if we want to pay, for example, 20 or 30% of yield on a pool for a TVL of $3 million, so we just calculate how much are those 30% of $3 million. So in that case, it could be $900,000. We divide this into 12 months, and we know how much dollars per month we should allocate to this pool. So of course, when the price of the token, when the token price is high, you distribute less token. When the token is low, you distribute more token. So this was one of the reasons to downside the program. The other thing is it was also to reduce just the number of GRT to distribute and to slow down a bit the farming program. This is why all the pool have been downside, because we pay less, because we want less TVL. And this is why also we have less volume. But interestingly, we have more transactions. So the biggest reason is that we have more pools. So of course, more pools equal more transaction. Why? Because, and we're gonna see it after, there are more arbitrages. Another reason for that is we have more and more integration. So there is Paraswap, DeFi Basket, more wallet, and of course, more awareness of what we are building. Remember again, this is only tracking the data on Polygon. Interesting number also, 127,000 transactions and 11,000 unique addresses have interacted with our contract on Polygon since we deployed in basically last year, almost. I mean, it's been 1 year, and you can see August 2021. So yeah, it's exactly 1 year. Okay, so another slide. So here we can see 2 of the routers. So I will remind you what routers are for us, for everyone. So basically, a router is just a smart contract that will facilitate a multi-swap. So for example, if you want to swap JEuro for Bitcoin, you will use a router. If you want to go to do JEuro to USDC, you will just use the normal Jarvis exchange or you can, of course, use the Paraswap router. But if you want to do, let's say, cross-asset trades, then you will need to use a router. So here are the two most important routers. The first one on the left, it's Jarvis router. It's entirely on-chain, which means that it is only used by smart contracts. And the second one, the one on the right, is the off-chain algorithm of Paras. I mean, Paraswap is off-chain. And so this is, of course, where most of the volume are. So right now we have $55 million that have been swapped through Paraswap and only 1.3 through our Jarvis router. It's normal also, something to forget to mention, Jarvis router has only one source of liquidity. So basically we combine a mint on Jarvis with, I think, QuickSwap, while Paraswap, of course, has way more liquidity, so better execution. We have also two more routers, the Curve FX router and the DeFi basket router. So Curve FX, it was only working for the V1 and it was just a beta and some tests. So the idea of the Curve FX router was basically to combine all the Curve pool together to create a huge on-chain Forex market. Interestingly, the team who developed with us the router asked us if we were okay if they were actually launching their own project on the top of Jarvis using this idea of a router. So of course we are more than happy to do it. So we stopped maintaining it, and now this team is developing their own exchange and their own router, which will also, as I said, combine all the Curve pools. So basically it will be a huge AMM for stablecoins, mostly powered by Jarvis. The DeFi basket router, so DeFi basket, if you remember, it's a fantastic project. The idea is one click to do everything. So one click to farm, one click to swap, to create a portfolio, and so on. There is a huge down of activity after August. The reason is that they had, I mean, it was a beta, their users identify few issues and bugs, so the activity, the new activity, the activity for new trades went down. Now they are working on a new version, and hopefully the volume will catch up. This is for Kyber. So now we speak about secondary markets. Yeah, I inverted two slides. So for secondary market, volume are not bad also. $167 million have been swapped on Kyber, Uniswap, and Curve. Those are the fees paid to the liquidity provider of those AMM. So this is quite interesting. 86,000 transactions and only 1,200 users. So it's very interesting to see the difference between the number of users of Curve, Kyber, and Uniswap for Jarvis, and the number of users on our primary market. It's 11,000 versus 1,200 users only. So now we track very interesting data. So here I sorted all the pool, I think by the total volume, but you can go on our June analytics and you can actually dig a bit more. So I will take a bit of time for this data because it's very interesting. So first, what is it? This here are listed all the pool on AMM that contain JFiat. I mean, not all of them, you have way more, but the screen was too small. So all the pool where the volume is below $10,000, I didn't display it. So of course, the pool with the highest volume for now, it's the €4 on Curve with $90 million of volume just for this pool alone. The liquidity provider of this pool, so the one doing the LP provision on Curve, has earned $18,000 in trading fees. So Curve pays 0.02% of trading fees. Sorry, to liquidity provider. 735 users, not that much. 16,000 transactions, and so on and so on. You can again read all of this. What is interesting is that it may be the biggest volume, but it's not where most of the fees are generated. So for example, if you check the Kyber pool, $50,000 have been generated. If you check this pool, the USD CHF pool, $13,000 have been generated. And where the pool, okay, those pool also, I will mention them after because they're interesting. Those were very small pool that we launched, J-Euro, Wrapped ETH, and G-Swiss Franc Wrapped ETH. And the fees are small, but related to the volume, sorry, to the liquidity, the TVL of those pools, actually, it was quite high, and we will see it after. So why it's important and to note this thing? It shows that even if for Jarvis, the most important pools are the one on Curve, the €4, the €2, and so on. Why? Because we basically create synergy with other stablecoins. The pool on Kyber, we launched them, if you remember, just because at the beginning there was not other stablecoins on Polygon. So it was impossible to do a Euro pool. There was no Euro S, there was no Euro T. We are basically the only Euro stablecoin on Polygon. So we didn't have any choice. If we wanted to do some liquidity mining, we had to go there. Then we decided to move away from those pools and to only focus on Curve. But interestingly, those pools makes more money for liquidity provider than the pool on Curve. And the reason is easy to understand. Those pools are volatile. It's J-Euro USD. So what is happening is that every time the price of euro-dollar goes up or down, there is someone who has to do an arbitrage. So they have to buy on Jarvis and they have to sell, for example, on Kyber or vice versa. So it's very important for Jarvis because it generates trading fees, but it's also very important for Kyber LP because it generates also fees for them. And so what this table teaches us is that it was maybe a mistake, not maybe actually, it was a mistake to give up all our farm on Kyber or actually on volatile pool to only focus on the pool on Curve. And in the future, we should launch more pool which are non-stable because they generate more fees for the liquidity provider and they also generate more fees for, I mean, not necessarily more fees for us, but most likely they should generate a lot of fees for us, but it's mainly for liquidity provider. It is important if liquidity provider can earn more fees which are not from GRT, you know, yield, natural fee, real yield is better than fake yield. And this is why also the pool on ETHcc were very interesting because they were generating also a lot of fees. Okay, so now let's go to the next. Wait, because every time I have to clear all the drawing. So next slide. So here I wanted to showcase some of the new data and some of the pool that we are not tracking. So for example, here you have the pool with angle on Curve on Polygon. So this, the one in the middle here, oops, I went too fast, sorry. So here, the one in the middle here basically shows the ratio. So as you can see, we're almost at 50-50. So the pool is very well balanced. The volume, we had an interesting peak here. I will explain you what was it. And interesting, we have the real yield. So the idea of this data, it's not ultra accurate because of course, it's impossible to know what is the real yield of each LP because it depends when you start to be a liquidity provider. So how do we calculate this data? Basically, every day we check what was the TVL and what was the volume and therefore what was the fees paid to the liquidity provider. Then we just divide the fees by the TVL. And so we have every day, basically the daily yield. And then this daily yield, we just accumulate it days after days, and this is what we got. So here, the cumulative daily yield is 0.33%. So this is real yield. The pool have been launched in April. So it's April, May, June, July, August, and September. So it's 6 months. So if the activity remains equal, remains the same, we should go to 0.66, let's say a bit less than 1% per year of real yield. So of course, the idea is to have more of this yield. So how do we do? To have more yield, we simply need more transaction. And for more transaction, we don't necessarily need more TVL because more TVL and more transaction, maybe the yield will be the same. What we want is more transaction with the same TVL. So basically, we have to have way more arbitrage in the pool. And this can be done if, for example, Angle has more and more liquidity on their own versus USDC or versus USDC and so on. So what is interesting to notice here is that the more the other stablecoin have liquidity outside of our ecosystem, and the more arbitrage can happen. If there is only one pool, we have, let's say, a minimum amount of arbitrage. If, of course, there is zero pool, there is almost no arbitrage, and it's not interesting for us. So this also, those data helped to identify what was interesting in terms of pool and so on and so on. Okay, let's go to another slide. Okay, here I wanted to show something interesting as well. It's the pool on Kyber. So we stopped the yield on Kyber, but for some reason there are a few addresses. I guess it's mainly 1, 2, 3 addresses. Honestly, I didn't check. I have to. Who left their liquidity, and not a small amount. We still have almost $900,000 of liquidity in Kyber for the J-Euro, and 900 and almost 1 million for the Swiss franc also in Kyber. We also have 400,000 in for the GBP. So it could be people who forget about it, or it could be just people who keep their liquidity in Kyber to still to keep earning the trading fees. And because the curve is very flat here, so it looks like it's just maybe 1 or 2 addresses who just left their token there, and that's all. Here you can see that there is less USDC than J-Euro in the pool, so the pool is imbalanced. Why? It's simply because the price of euro-dollar went down, and the more it goes down, the less USDC you have and the more J-Euro. Interestingly, for the Swiss franc has been quite stable against the USD, and now actually it went up. So now you have it went a bit down. So you have 60% of Swiss franc and 39% of USD. So this also shows that a program with CHF and USD are actually quite stable, way more stable than a program with only Euro or Euro USD. So that's all. Okay, then something interesting I mentioned before, I told you we will check a bit more. So the pool against ETH on QuickSwap. So yes, the fees were very small, but the TVL was also very small. There was a peak at some point at $300,000 of liquidity for the wrapped J-Euro and 200,000 for the wrapped Swiss franc. And now, as I said, we have still a bit of like for Kyber. Here we have maybe 1 or 2 addresses who kept their liquidity. It's not at 0. So it still generates trading fees through arbitrage. And this is interesting because the yield is actually quite high. I speak about the natural yield. It's 2% for J-Euro wrapped ETH, and it's 1.4% for the Swiss franc. The pool have been launched in May. So from the 15th, it's 5 months, basically. So it means that for 1 year, we could reach something like 4, maybe 5%, if of course now we relaunch the program, so there will be a bit more volume and transaction. But it's interesting. Why? Because this 2% is higher than the impermanent loss. So basically, if you are a liquidity provider in the pool and you started in May and you kept your liquidity until now, you didn't lose money, you actually made money, because the impermanent loss on the euro, ETH euro, is I think 0.2% or 0.3%, if I'm not mistaken, because the price of ETH went down, so of course. But it is compensated by the trading fees that have been earned by the liquidity provider. And this is absolutely awesome, because it means that we can have those pool and people can actually somehow store their ETH without having to face impermanent loss. And the volume is, of course, because of all the arbitrage that people can do between the QuickSwap pool and Jarvis directly. So the idea is, I finished with Uniswap. So why did we launch pool on Uniswap? So I contacted CoinGecko team to list all our stablecoins and to have a price feed there. But the problem is that CoinGecko does not support Chainlink. They only take price from exchanges. And for us, it's a bit redundant, because we have already an exchange powered by Chainlink. So if we want actually to have a price feed on CoinGecko, we need to have a pool for all our stablecoins. So the problem is that we have around 20 stablecoins, which means that we need to create at least 20 pools and to put liquidity there, because basically the requirement of CoinGecko is to have at least $10,000 of liquidity in the pool. So we have 20 pools, so we need basically $200,000 of liquidity just to have a price feed and nothing else. So for now, of course, we didn't do it. But the idea is that since I showed you before with the numbers, that the pool which are not stable are actually the one that generates the more fees for the liquidity provider, then we should launch liquidity mining, or we should incentivize people to deposit liquidity in those pools. And I show you two pools for reference. So the first one is Japanese yen here. And as you can see, since the pool has been launched, it has generated 1.67% of trading fees for the liquidity provider. And the Canadian dollar way less, 0.38%. So the reason is because Japanese yen was way more volatile than the Canadian dollar. You can see it in the ratio. Here, as you can see, the ratio in Canada for the Canadian dollar pair didn't really move, while the ratio with the Japanese yen went down and up and so on and so on. Remember that when the price of Japanese yen goes down, then there is less and less USDC in the pool. So here you can see that the price went down. Here it was quite stable, which means that the price of Canadian dollar against USD was, for the whole period from March 2022 to today, quite stable. And this is why you have more fees generated here rather than on the Canadian dollar. But interestingly, this is not the case for all the pool. So there are some pools, for example, the PLN, there is a typo, which is the Polish zloty. So the pool was created in June, a bit of liquidity on just $200. It's a very small pool. On Uniswap, we only put small pools. For example, here, I don't know if you can see the liquidity. Here it's $1,000 of liquidity. For Japanese yen, it was $1,500. So for the PLN, it was no, not $400, sorry. But interestingly, no one is arbitraging this pool, while there is some arbitrage to do. So for example, I show an example here. So this was this morning, 100 USDC give you 481 zloty on Paraswap. And then you can sell, sorry, it was 10. So 10 USDC gives you 41.12 zloty. And if you sell those 41 zloty, you end up with $10.24, which means that you make a profit of 24 cents. So of course, 24 cents doesn't sell your dream, but you don't care. If you are a bot and you do it multiple times per day or so on, you actually make profit. But interestingly, the robots who are doing arbitrage are very active in the Japanese yen and in the Canadian dollar, which explains the volume and therefore the yield. But they are absolutely not active for the PLN. It looks like they didn't see the contract, or I don't know. So anyway, if one of you wants to create funny arbitrage bots for those Uniswap pools, there is still some market shares to take for arbitrage to make a few dollars per day. It won't be a fortune, of course, for those small pools. But why I'm mentioning those pools? Because remember at the beginning, I told you that we are now considering moving toward balancer. So the idea would be to move all the Uniswap pool toward balancer. So basically, JFiat USD pool. As you can see on Kyber, those pools should generate a lot of trading fees for the liquidity provider and of course for the balancer protocol. So it's a win-win for the LP, it's a win-win for the protocol. And of course, we'll use the BAL token that we may buy in order to incentivize those pools with BAL emission. Then Balancer has also stable pool. So this could replace Curve. And also Balancer, as you may know, have basket pool. You can actually create a pool with 8 different tokens. And as you know, we have launched one basket of currency, the JSDR, but we didn't incentivize yet. But we could create pool. For example, we can create a pool with Swiss franc, gold, and Chinese yen, for example. That could be a pool to have an exposure toward currency and gold instead of having an exposure to euro or to dollar. So this could be very useful. And also, we can, of course, move the liquidity of the Jarvis token using weighted pools, so 80% of Jarvis, 20% of ETH, and this kind of thing. So this is why I wanted to show all those numbers to show that we can really add a lot of value to the balancer protocol, and liquidity provider can earn incentives plus also natural yield. Of course, it doesn't sell dream to have 1.67% of yield for 5 months. It's like 4% per year. But when you put your money into Aave for now, for example, USDC, it pays 0.5%. And this is a safe yield. You know, you don't take a lot of risk when you deposit into Uniswap or when you deposit into a balancer, for example. So this is why those pools interest me a lot, especially when today you have this new narrative around the real yield. Okay, so last thing which is very interesting, the arbitrage, because now we are tracking arbitrage. So we can't track all the arbitrages, and let me explain you how do we do it and what arbitrage can be. So for example, when there was the meltdown of UST, a lot of people were afraid about the fiat-backed stablecoins or stablecoins where it was very hard to know exactly what was behind the scene. So you had a lot of FUD in USDT. So USDT was heavily sold. You also had the same thing on Euro, the Euro from Stasis, the Euro S. And so at some points, many people were actually selling Euro S to get a J Euro in the 4 Euro pool. And then they were selling it for USDC. So this created huge imbalances because since you had a lot of Euro Stasis in the pool and very few J Euro, if you had J Euro, if you had, for example, 1,000 J Euro, you could have bought 1,025 Euro Stasis, for example. So you receive 25 Euro more. And you had the same thing on Ethereum with the pool with Angle. So you had AJ Euro, Euro S pool, and same thing, Euro S was in huge quantity versus AJ Euro. So what we have done at Jarvis when we saw this, since Montpellerin, our partner in Switzerland, is supporting Euro S and can do the off-ramp for the Euro Stasis, we did arbitrage that cannot be tracked. So what we have done, we had J Euro. We basically sold the J Euro for the Euro S from Stasis, and we send the Euro S to Montpellerin and exchange them for Euro. So just this, we did it multiple times, and it pays the salary of the entire month just with the proceeds of the arbitrage. We did also arbitrage cross-chain, so we sent, we bought AJ Euro using the J Euro. Then we sent the AJ Euro back to Ethereum, and the AJ Euro, we exchange them for Euro S on Curve on Ethereum. And here again, we kept them, sent them to Montpellerin, and we did again a profit here. So those arbitrage, they cannot be tracked. So we can't, unfortunately, account them. But for sure, just on our side, it was, I think it was maybe $200,000-300,000 of arbitrage. So I guess more people are doing them, of course. Then we can't also measure or track arbitrage that doesn't happen in the same transaction. So for example, me, I'm not a dev. Unfortunately, I don't have a bot. It happens that I do arbitrage when sometimes I see an opportunity, but I do it always in 2 transactions. So for example, I buy on Jarvis exchange and I sell on Curve and vice versa. So those arbitrage cannot be tracked also. So the only arbitrage that we track are the arbitrage done by bots, which are happening in the same transaction. So as you may know, I don't know if you know, but you can pack multiple transactions within the same transaction and just send it, forward it on the blockchain, and it will be executed. So this is what we track. So bots that are doing this have generated $52 million of volume on the top of the $236 million of volume that mentioned before. They generated for us, for Synthereum, $53,000 of fee, 44,000 transactions, and only 171 bots. Here you can see on the chart below the volume. So for example, you can see that you have more and more green. Green, it's the 2 Euro pool that we have with Angle. So right now, the most arbitrage are actually happening through the Curve Euro, 2 Euro pool with Angle. This is in terms of volume. In terms of transaction, it's a bit different. Interestingly, you can notice maybe here that there is a greenish grayish color. This is the pool that we have with Mimo. So that's very interesting. We have way more transaction. I mean, bots are doing way more transaction on the pool with Mimo, but they are doing way more volume on the pool with Angle. I don't really have an explanation. I guess it's because maybe the liquidity of PAR is smaller outside. So volume are smaller, but because there is many transactions to be done, then many transactions are basically happening. Okay, so next slide. Here you have a leaderboard of the liquidity pool generating the most arbitrage. So this is also very interesting data. So what we can see here again, of course, the one who generated the more fee for the protocol is the curve for Europool. It's logical. It's where, for now, most of the arbitrage have happened. But right under you have Kyber, so no surprise considering what I said before. But then we have 2 or 3 interesting pools. So actually, the result surprised me when I saw it. So the third one is the pool on that we have with Angle, and this pool it's fairly recent, but it's already in the top 3 of the pool that generates for the protocol and for the liquidity provider the more fees. Wait, because I have again a bug. Okay, so yeah, $3,000. Well, it's not crazy, but it's for us. It's a small pool. Then we have the 2 SGD pool, and also we have the 2 CAD and the 2 GPY pool. So those are the pools that generate basically a nice amount of volume for the liquidity provider of those pools and for the liquidity provider of Synthereum. You can also see the profit that arbitrageurs are doing when they do their arbitrage. So here also it was a bit hard to track. We could only track 80% of the profit done by bot because it's not that easy. So, for example, arbitrageur on the 4 euro pool, they did $64,000 of profit, which is actually quite huge. And you can see here $13,000 of profits using the GPYC, $17,000 of profit using the SGD, and so on and so on. So as you can see, arbitrage is quite interesting way of making money, and it works, and everybody is somehow happy. The liquidity provider of Jarvis makes money, Synthereum makes money, the LP also makes money. The question is, who is losing money? So when you deposit liquidity in a pool, for example, let's take the example of the XSGD pool. So when you deposit liquidity in this pool, most of the time you only deposit 1 asset. It's very rare people who deposit 2 assets. When you deposit 1 asset, you either you win or you lose a slippage. So if you deposit JSGD and there is more JSGD in the pool, you will pay a negative slippage. So for example, you will deposit $100 of the asset, but you will lose maybe 0.2%. So let's say you will lose 20 cents. But those 20 cents, they're not really lost. It's just that you create an opportunity for a bot to come and to do an arbitrage. So what they will do, they will basically buy the strongest asset by selling in the pool the weakest asset. So they will sell XSGD and they will buy JSGD. And they will do this thanks to you. So the profit of the arbitrage are actually the loss of the liquidity provider who deposited and who suffer from negative slippage. This is why when you invest in this kind of pools, the best thing that you should do is actually to try to deposit the 2 tokens at the same time and to withdraw the 2 tokens also at the same time. This way, you will not have any negative slippage. The only problem that may happen if, let's say, you deposit JSGD and XSGD, and then you withdraw them. The problem is that XSGD is way less liquid than JSGD. So when you will sell the XSGD for USDC, you may receive less dollar than if you had done it with JSGD. But the only way to fix this issue is basically if you are someone in Singapore, if you deal with your own currency, because XSGD can be exchanged for SGD in Singapore at a 1:1 ratio. So people in Singapore, if they do this properly, they cannot really lose money investing here. The only ones who are losing money to arbitrage both are the ones who buy the currency with USDC, deposit, and suffer from a negative slippage. So of course, when you deposit and you have a negative slippage, what you hope? You hope that the trading fees that the pool receive will offset those this negative slippage, and also that the yield that you win is doing it. And in 99% of the time, it is the case. But there are some cases where you actually may lose money because of the negative slippage and the yield is not enough to cover it. This is a case where, for example, you really deposit when the negative slippage is very big and you don't stay long enough in the pool to receive enough yield to offset this loss. So there is no money created out of nowhere. There is someone paying this yield to the arbitrager. Okay, and we finish with this data, which is the leaderboard of the bot, which are performing the arbitrage. So here you have the 10 most profitable, the 10 most active. So these bots have generated 5.7 million. He generated for us $5,700 of fees, and he made a profit of $15,000. He's only active in the curve for Europool. So as you can see, we track way more data now. It's more interesting to follow. So you can go now to analytics and really check everything. And that's pretty much it for that. And this, as you can see, can help us in the future for the governance and to decide which pool to incentivize and to be careful with the negative slippage, because again, the profit of the arbitrager come from it. I want to stress on something. The profit of arbitrager do not come only for that. Don't think that they only make money because of the negative slippage. Arbitrager, they also win money when the liquidity outside of a curve is, the peg, sorry, of the pool of the token outside of curve is not perfect. So for example, when you have a pool with 50-50 and you deposit the two assets and you have zero negative slippage, if, for example, the price of par or balancer is moving up or down, an arbitrager will come and will do an arbitrage between balancer and curve. In that case, you didn't pay a negative slippage, but the arbitrager makes profit anyway, even if it was not from a negative slippage. So don't think that profit of arbitrager only come from that. But it's true that the largest arbitrage come when people deposit a single asset and create imbalance in the pool. Okay, so now the fiat on and off ramp, so it's quite stable. So if we remove the peak from December and January, this year we remain around $2 million per month, and this is the $2 million. So $2 million per month of on and off ramp. As you can see, the on ramps are always more than the off ramp, just maybe in this month where it was almost the same. But in average, I think 2 or 3 times more on ramp than off ramp. Since it was 1 year that we work with Montpellerin, we also published on Twitter some data. So what we found out is that we had 2,000 unique users who have used the service on Montpellerin. But the most interesting data is not this. They did 8.7 thousand transactions, those 2,000 people. It means that every day, if we include weekend, but of course there is no transaction on the weekend, 23 transactions have happened. So every day there is, in average, 23 on and off ramp processed by Montpellerin with our stablecoins, of course, and they have other markets. So imagine the number of transactions that they deal with every day for the fiat and crypto on and off ramp. In average, those 2,000 people, they have made, I think, a transaction of 2,000 euro. This is the average. The largest transaction was 1 million, a bit more than 1 million euro. And the most active network, of course, is Polygon. But what was interesting, and I was not really aware of it, is that actually there is quite activity on Gnosis and on BNB. But on BNB and on Gnosis, we don't have farming with the JERO. So people who are using the fiat on and off ramp on those blockchains, they don't use it to buy euro. They don't use it to farm. They actually use it just for the fiat on and off ramp. So they acquire JERO and they dump the JERO to buy something else. On Gnosis, from what I analyzed, it is mainly correlated to reality. So most of the people are actually using the fiat on and off ramp in Gnosis to buy property in reality. And on BNB, I have no idea. Honestly, I didn't do a blockchain analysis yet. But yeah, those were the top 3 blockchains. And after you have Avalanche, and then you have Ethereum, of course. Okay. So now that we have made a very comprehensive tour of the ecosystem, what did we do for the past 3 months? Well, we did a lot. I couldn't, of course, speak about everything, so I will only speak about the most relevant things. So first thing first, we did the audit and the launch of Synthereum v2 on 2 blockchains, Polygon and Optimism. Why not on other blockchain? Because as of today, Synthereum v2 is built on the top of a money market. And for now, it is Aave v3. We can use any other money market. We could use Compound, we can use Aave v2, we can use Morpho, we can use Midas, and so on and so on. But it was decided to, for now, only use Aave v3. Aave v3 is not on every blockchain. They are not on BNB, they are not on Ethereum. I think they are on Avalanche. So the next blockchain where we're going to deploy the v2 will be Avalanche. But for BNB, we need to find a replacement to Aave. So we have to look for a money market which we consider as secure and as battle tested as Aave, which is not that easy to find such a level of, let's say, perfection. Not saying that there is no good project on BNB for that, but it's not Aave, let's say. And on Ethereum, we are just waiting for Aave v3, which means that as soon as Aave v3 is on Ethereum, we are actually going back to the layer 1, the most important, Ethereum, and this will be very interesting and important for us because even though I like Polygon, Optimism, and so on, it's true that we are a bit in echo chamber. We are a bit closed from the biggest ecosystem. We are a bit closed from the biggest synergy. For example, most of the fiat-backed stablecoin, I said most of them, not all of them, they are only redeemable using Ethereum. It's only since 2 weeks ago that ETHcc is redeemable also on Polygon. Before it was only on Ethereum, which makes the pool that we have on Polygon a bit less interesting. Now that it is not the case anymore, the pool starts to be more interesting, but you know what I mean. So we, of course, plan on launching another blockchain, but for now, Polygon and Optimism. So Synthereum v2, you have to see it, even if it's not very correct in terms of code, but the idea is to see it as multiple module, multiple contracts that create this new protocol. So what we have launched, first we have launched, oops, I will just create a notation. We have launched multi-pool. So multi-pool is the module which allows multiple pool to coexist, multiple pool to collateralize, multiple liquidity provider, sorry, to collateralize the same J-Euro. So we can have 2 or 3 different liquidity providers, for example. The wrapper. So wrapper, it was interesting with Euro-E, and it will be interesting with Euro from Circle. So what is a wrapper? So the idea is that you take a fiat-backed stablecoin and you wrap J-Euro around it. So for example, if you have 10 Euro-E, you can wrap them into 10 J-Euro. So basically, it allows you to mint J-Euro at a 1:1 ratio out of other fiat-backed stablecoins. So for now, we only do it with Euro-E, but we will use ETHcc to be able to mint a JCAD using ETHcc. And of course, we'll use Euro-C from Circle to be able to mint J-Euro using Euro-C. So why this is important and interesting? So first, for the liquidity provider, the JCAD, as you may know, and the J-Euro also, the liquidity provider, they are short on euro-dollar or short on CAD dollar. If some of the J-Euro and some of the Canadian dollar are minted out of CAD-C or Euro-C, there is no more market risk. So for example, let's say there is 5 million J-Euro, and in those 5 million J-Euro, you have 2 million J-Euro, which are collateralized by Euro-C or Euro-E. But you know that actually the risk that is facing the liquidity provider is only on 3 million J-Euro. So the idea is to diversify and to lower the market risk of the protocol and of the liquidity provider. The other reason is purely for marketing, because if you have a wrapper around Euro-C, and you know that EuroC is the Euro stablecoin that will be listed on the most centralized exchange possible, Coinbase, Binance, and so on and so on. Then when you are a user of Coinbase and you have EuroC, if you have somehow, let's call it a bridge to go to DeFi, but you will use it. So the idea is that you have EuroC on Coinbase, you can wrap it into JEuro, and boom, you are in the Jarvis ecosystem. So it's basically a connection toward all the centralized exchange that are listing EuroC or ETHcc and so on and so on. And the third one, which is more a long-term idea, is that fiat-backed stablecoins are the cheapest fiat on and off ramp that you can find. If you have euro and you want euro E, or if you have euro and you want euro C or euro T, or I mean, you understand, you just send the euro to the IBAN of the issuer, and the issuer just issues the fiat-backed stablecoin. And maybe you will pay nothing or 0.1, 0.2%, but this is damn cheap. Over fiat on and off ramp, so of course, you know Mon Pelerin, but you have also Transact, Ramp, and so on. The fees here are way bigger because, of course, they have more constraints and more things to pay. So for them, it comes at a higher price. So to have JEuro collateralized by Euro E and Euro C, it is a way to have a very cheap and straightforward fiat on and off ramp. Because if you have today, and it works already, huh? If you have 100 euros, you send them to your Monerium IBAN, or you send them to Coinbase. And in Coinbase, you exchange your 100 euro for 100 euro C. And on Monerium, the 100 euro become 100 euro E. And then out of those 100 euro C or 100 euro E, you create 100 euro. Boom, you have an on-ramp. Of course, it is in two free transactions, so it's not user-friendly at all. But the idea is that if you create this infrastructure in the coming weeks and months, you will have companies who will build on the top of it, and you will just send them euro, and they will send them JEuro, and they will send you JEuro. And this is why we did the wrapper. It's to enable builders and developers to create fiat-backed, fiat on and off ramp cheaper. So that are the three reasons why we did the wrapper. Then we did the printer. So the printer has two modules. For now, we only launched one module, which is called the direct deposit module. So how does it work? You print JEuro and you directly deposit them into a money market. So you print JEuro, you deposit them into Aave or into Midas, and all of this in just one transaction. So this is the contract that we are using in order to supply liquidity on money markets. So this is all the thing we have done, launched, and audited. Then we have some issues with Chainlink. They suspended two price feeds, the price feed of the Colombian peso and the price feed on the Naira. And it's very bad for us because you don't know, but actually we were very active in Colombia with Colombian people to launch a few projects there. And we are also super active with one project in Nigeria to launch something. The bad thing is that it happened, I think, 1 or 2 weeks before we launched something in Nigeria. And for the Colombian peso, we are not near the launch, but it doesn't matter. So we have to put a hold on those 2 projects that we have there. And the idea was to find a replacement to Chainlink in order to have back those 2 price feeds. Also, we are discussing with the team of ETHcc, which is a sidechain on the top of blockchain, in order to launch JEuro there. And Chainlink is not on ETHcc. There is another Oracle provider, which is a free API. And so we basically did the code to support another Oracle into Synthereum, and we completed the code. So now we just need to integrate this code into the protocol, but at least the code is done. Then we also worked on the Paraswap integration for the V2, Midas, and DeFi Basket. So now on Midas, DeFi Basket, and Paraswap, those protocols only use either the printer of the V2 or the pools of the V2. Then we launched a new pool. So we launched a free BRL on BNB and new 2 euro pool with PAR, Euro E, AJ Euro, Euro T. We also launched G-Gold. So some information about all of this. So first, before we had the 2 BRL, we moved to the free BRL because Transfero, which is the company issuing the BRZ token, contacted us through our community manager in Brazil to tell us that they are launching a wrapped BRZ from Solana into BNB. So why they do it? So BRZ is actually a very huge stablecoin. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it is the largest non-USD stablecoin, bigger than Euro stablecoin and so on and so on. But most of this liquidity is actually not on decentralized exchange or into DeFi. It is on centralized exchange, and some of them into FTX. So FTX has listed the BRZ token on their platform. The problem is that FTX only supports Solana, and I think another blockchain, but Solana, for depositing and withdrawing. So if you trade on FTX BRZ, you can withdraw it into Solana. But then what they did, they wrapped the token from Solana to BNB. So on BNB, there are now two BRZ tokens. You have the BRZ, which BRZ minted on BNB, and you have the BRZ minted on Solana, but wrapped in BNB. And they would like to push a lot with BRZ, so they asked us if we were okay to create a new pool with them. And after some discussion, we found out that the best was not to create two pools, so two BRL, but one free BRL. And this is what we have done basically. And we have also launched the G-Gold, but we did one, let's not call it a mistake, but one thing that doesn't work. So basically, we speak with a project for quite a time, which they are doing tokenized gold, but you can redeem and so on and so on. And so the idea was to work with them, to create pools with them, and the wrapper with them, and everything around gold. So we launched it. We did a pool with them on Curve for testing, but we found out that actually they don't track the price of gold the way we do it. They only track the price of gram of gold, and we track the price of 1 ounce of gold. So it doesn't work because our J gold is worth like 1 ounce. Don't know how to pronounce it, and then they track the price of 1 gram. So we have to relaunch our contract tracking the price of gram. We still haven't done it because it's a bit of work. But this is why so far the J gold hasn't been used yet. But we will launch it soon. So we'll launch a J gold tracking the price of the gram. So 1 J gold will be equal to 1 gram of gold. But then we launched the liquidity provision application. So this application is very important because it allows liquidity provider in Synthereum V2 to provide liquidity, to withdraw liquidity, to follow a bit their performance, to modify their leverage, and so on and so on. When we will launch a new version of the pools, we will make a live to explain to people how to use the liquidity provision application. We also finished the credit line application, but only on the testnet for now. So the credit line application is basically to allow you to mint yourself J-Euro with your own collateral. We also did the onboarding app V2, so we're using the V2 of Synthereum. And for Mexico, we also launched one onboarding app in Spanish and using the MXN instead of the euro. We also launched the CurveFX application that I told you after we finally don't use anymore because another project is building their CurveFX platform. We launched a fiat on-off ramp in Mexico with Swarmy. We did the first buyback of Jarvis token, and we did more now after. So if you want more information about the buyback, I invite you to check the video we did in last June, where I explained the new token economics, which encompass buyback of GRT. And even if the new token economics are not yet finished, the buyback module is already existing, so we are just using it. So every 2-3 weeks, we actually are buying back GRT using the profits from the pool. We did a few events, so the most important was, of course, ETHcc, where we brought most of the team in Paris. We met many projects. We showcased our onboarding application, so the burner wallet with J-Euro. People, of course, liked it because if you remember, it's pretty cool. You just scan a QR code and boom, you have J-Euro. You don't pay gas and so on. You can do whatever you want with it. We then did many different Twitter space and AMA. The last one, for example, we did one with Midas. We actually are doing one again tomorrow with Midas. Blue Jay, which is a stablecoin issuer that we met in Paris, and we're gonna work with them as soon as they are live. We did one with, well, this was in Brazil, I mean Portuguese, with BRZ token. We did one in Portuguese also with BNB chain. We did one in Spanish, sorry, with Swarmy. One in Spanish with New Finance. So those AMA are done by our community manager because we have a community manager for Brazil and for Mexico. We also did a few cross-border payments using our Euro e-wrapper toward Nigeria before the price feed was cut, and using Swarmy with Mexican peso. And we also did a very big upgrade on our June dashboard, as I showed you with all the data that we track now. What is left to say? It's on our to-do list, so on what we are working right now. So, as I said, we will launch Synthereum V2 on other chains, Ethereum, BNB, Gnosis, and so on, as soon as AAV3 is there. As I said, AAV3 is already on Avalanche. Jarvis token, we work on it, and there will be a new token, as you know. The multi-LP vault, this will be the biggest improvement to the protocol, because it's true that Synthereum V2, as of today, it's still not ultra scalable, because you need to whitelist liquidity provider if you want to become a liquidity provider in Synthereum. And it's good if you deposit a large amount of money, 20, 50, 100,000 USDC. So it's not for everyone. For people who want to deposit just 1,000 USDC, they will need to wait the multi-LP vault that will be launched. So basically, vault, it's people who put all their money together and they are one liquidity provider inside the multi-LP system. So now Synthereum V2 have one pool, which, I mean, one pool per asset. So you have the USDC pool, USDC. And this pool can contain, for example, let's say 5 or 4 different liquidity providers. So one of the liquidity providers is us. The other liquidity provider is a Treasury. And, and another liquidity provider will be actually the vault. So the vault, people can join the vault, and the vault is a liquidity provider. And this is how anyone could become liquidity provider on Synthereum V2. So we work actively on this. We will also do more update on June on the other chains, because we have many things to track on BNB and also on Gnosis and so on, and on Avalanche. And also we still need to add way more data to track on Polygon. There are many other things that we can track to have a better understanding of the protocol. We have to optimize a lot our treasury and our yield farming program as well. So this is what I was mentioning when I went over the treasury. We will introduce other collateral type. So right now I'm preparing a discussion for KeyDAO to see if they could be interested into onboarding MAI as collateral into Synthereum. So we could have Synthereum V2 with MAI as collateral. But we need to see if the community of KeyDAO will be interested to become a liquidity provider, or if the protocol itself will be interested to become a liquidity provider in MAI. We will also onboard ETH and EURC for the wrapper. And we will work, this didn't start yet, with AMM collateral vault. So the idea is that for now, the collateral is just USDC, but nothing prevents us to have collateral into USDC DAI. So this is heavily inspired by the GLP model of GMX. So for example, you can have USDC and also Maple, if you know Maple. What I'm saying, yeah, I think it's Maple. I think it's Maple, but honestly, I don't remember. It was MUSD, so it's a USD stablecoin backed by let's say an AMM of all the stablecoin. And liquidity, when you mint MUSD, you earn the yield of the swaps. So this is the old idea. Then you have the GLP of GMX with somehow the same idea, but of course quite different. And so the idea is to make some experiments in the future with this, with USDC, MAI, USDT, for example, collateral vault. So this will collateral 0, and the liquidity provider will earn trading fees when there is a mint, but also trading fees of the swap between USDC, DAI, and USDT, and so on and so on. And why not in the future having really like the GLP ETH and so on and so on. But this will be maybe at the end of the year or next year. I mean, we still haven't started, but it's just to show you the to-do list. And there are other things here that we'll do later. But first, we want to finish Synthereum V2. So basically, this is all the things that we have to do to finish it somehow. And then we will work on a new roadmap that we'll explain next year. So yeah, that's all. Okay, so this is the end of the live. So if you have any questions, feel free. And now we'll do the French one in 20 minutes. So for the French people, you can be with us and see the French version after. If you have questions, feel free to ask them now in YouTube. Okay, no questions. So thank you for attending. I wish you all end of your day, and I'll see you soon for another live. Tomorrow there is one with Midas. Monday there will be one with Monerium. So I will have the pleasure to introduce you the way the Euro E works and the wrapper and so on and so on. And there will be other AMA with Midas in the coming weeks and months. So there will be other occasion to speak together. It won't be in addition to GRT. It will replace GRT. So there will be a migration contract. So you can go from GRT to Jarvis token. It was like, when ETH land went from ETH land to AAV, they swapped the land token to AAV. So here it's the same. You will swap the GRT for Jarvis. And if you want more information, you have a video on the YouTube channel which explains the token economics of this new token in English. Thanks everyone for your time.